2000, the founders of an unprofitable mail-order startup walked into a corporate boardroom and asked the king of their industry for a buyout. The asking price was $50 million. The executives in the room laughed them out of the building. Today, that rejected startup is worth over $150 billion. The giant that turned them away has exactly one nostalgic storefront left in operation. Blockbuster executives looked at the numbers and saw a niche business. They missed the early signals of a shift in consumer behavior that would eventually dismantle their entire industry. To understand the weight of that mistake, you have to remember how invincible Blockbuster felt in the late 90s. Picking out a movie on a Friday night required a physical trip to their stores, and they controlled that ritual for millions of families. Their empire was massive. They operated 9,100 locations, employed 84,000 people, and generated $6 billion annually. This map also tracks their most lucrative mechanic, the late fee, which brought in $800 million in 2000 alone. That absolute dominance created a dangerous illusion. When your physical footprint is everywhere, it's easy to assume your business model is permanent. Netflix began as a scrappy mail order service. They targeted a small group of early adopters who were just starting to move from VHS tapes to DVDs. The company's origin is often tied to a story about a $40 late fee for Apollo 13, but the founders later admitted that was a packaged marketing anecdote rather than the actual spark for the business. When they offered themselves to Blockbuster for $50 million, the rejection was based on a very specific logic. The dot-com bubble was bursting, Netflix was losing money, and the mail-order DVD market seemed too small to matter to a global giant. It is the central paradox of corporate strategy. A decision that looks perfectly rational on a quarterly spreadsheet can still lead a company toward a long-term disaster. In the years following that meeting, Blockbuster didn't pivot toward a digital future. Instead, they leaned further into their existing strengths by expanding their physical footprint. This pie chart shows the impact of their 2004 hostile bid for Hollywood entertainment. Blockbuster was trying to consume over half of the physical rental market at a time when the very nature of the market was changing. By 2008, a leadership shift at the top led the company to actively cut its online investments. The new mandate was to forcefully redirect resources back into the brick-and-mortar stores. They fortified their physical empire at the exact moment the digital era rendered it obsolete. While Blockbuster protected its stores, Netflix was being guided by a different economic force, a concept called creative destruction. Economist Joseph Schumpeter described this as a process of industrial mutation that incessantly destroys the old economic structure from within to create a new one. Netflix leadership approached their business as a software problem, not a logistics challenge. They viewed the physical disc as a temporary medium for digital data. In 2007, they pivoted to streaming. To build this untested platform, they were willing to cannibalize their own profitable DVD by mail business before someone else could do it for them. They removed the friction that defined the Blockbuster experience: no late fees, instant access, and algorithmic personalization that predicted what you wanted to watch before you did. Survival in a changing industry often requires a company to intentionally destroy its own successful model. This paralysis is a classic example of the innovator's dilemma, a framework developed by Clayton Christensen. Disruption rarely starts with a direct assault on a leader's core business. Instead, it begins in the margins, appearing as a low-margin niche that established companies feel safe ignoring. For Blockbuster, their massive success became their greatest liability. Their 9,100 stores and their late fee revenue acted as literal anchors, making it impossible to pivot without destroying the very things that made them profitable. Well-run monopolies often fail because their existing success punishes the kind of experimentation needed to survive the future. The collapse was swift. By the late 2000s, Blockbuster was delisted from the stock exchange and buried in debt. They filed for bankruptcy in 2010. Netflix, meanwhile, has grown into an international powerhouse, producing its own content for over 260 million subscribers. The story leaves a clear mandate for any modern business. If you are unwilling to disrupt yourself, someone else will eventually do it for you. Blockbuster's demise highlights the ultimate cost of comfort. They spent their final years defending the world as it was, while their competitor was busy building the world as it would become.